Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamsalai.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 7th episode of season 18, a very special guest and school safety expert, Mr. Daniel Dluzneski. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dr. Dan, thank you so much for having me on. Just a little bit about my background. I worked for the Secret Service up in Washington, D.C. for 24 years, a little over 24 years, and was fortunate enough to go up through the ranks and finish with the rank of lieutenant. I started right at the end of President Reagan's term and ended up at President Obama's term and left at that time. And I had a great career. I tell you, people talk, there's ups and downs and you have differences of opinion with some bosses and stuff like that. But it was a varied career. And I loved it because, number one, I got to stay in D.C. And number two, I was with a division called the Uniform Division. And we actually wear a uniform. And the nice thing about it was we had dual powers. Meaning I could arrest someone for threatening the president, but I also could arrest someone from stealing someone's purse. So it was nice to be able to do that. And we had 3 separate divisions within Washington, D.C. We had the White House Division, of course, which was our main focus and our largest force. We also protected the vice president's residence, and we had a foreign missions branch, which actually worked with the State Department with all the foreign missions and embassies and chancelleries, in the Washington, D.C. area. So it was a very varied career. And the nice thing about the Uniform Division, they had all the specialized stuff that I love. Canine, motorcycle support, the counter snipers on the rooftops. You had a SWAT team. They had crime scene search technicians. It just was so varied, and I loved it. And I was able to stay there in D.C., so I didn't have to move around to different states. And, the career itself, it just is something that I have a lot of memories of and a lot of good memories, and a lot of good friends were made there. So when I left there, I was going to retire, come down to Florida, which we had visited at the time with my ex-wife. And I thought, okay, I love the warm weather. That's it. I'm done. Sit on the beach, drink a beer. And with alpha personalities, that lasts about 2 or 3 months and you're driving yourself crazy. So I had to do something. So it just kind of was odd at the time. The Pinellas County school system down here in Florida, where I live, had a job opening, and it fit my resume. And I thought, boy, this will work out. And it was for an emergency management coordinator with the county. And not realizing for myself, when I was up in Washington, D.C., moving to Florida, watch all the old people go. There's a whole bunch of retirees down there. No. There is a varied bunch of people down here that have lots of kids. There were a lot of kids down here in Florida. And in the county that I was in, Pinellas County, I was in charge of over 100,000 students in 140 schools. Very dense community, very dense county. And everything from the North County, very elite, very liberal, white, to our South County, which is low income, Hispanic, Black. So it was a very diverse county in that respect. So I want to say thrown into the job, but I kind of was thrown into the job. I didn't have much, I want to say leadership. It was almost like, okay, make our schools safe. You got it, Dan, see you later. I had no staff. It was just me, no secretary, nothing. So here I am in charge of these schools, like, all right. The nice thing was the office where I was at, the individuals that I work with, what they're called, they were head plan operators. They were in charge of the head plan operators of the school. So they were in charge of the budget for all your physical security, your fencing, your doors, your windows, your construction, all that stuff. So all I had to do was common sense, just ask them going, what are we doing with 3-foot fences? I mean, that's not doing anything. We should at least be 6-foot fences. And it went from there. So from the outside in, we tried to harden up the schools physically. Then it was my job to talk to the principals and the administrators and say, what are we doing about safety, training your own people? Because it wasn't about technology. It still is not about technology, Dr. Dan. We'll get into that a little bit. But it's about training the people and giving them the confidence in case something happens. And I would tell them, look, I understand Sandy Hook and Parkland and Uvalde and all these schools, but in reality, it's like winning the lottery or being struck by lightning. It's probably not going to happen to your school, but why not be prepared?
True.
You don't have to be scared. Just be confident that if something does happen, you know what to do. And the easiest thing to do, we all know, is lock down. Now, I required the classroom doors to be locked during the school day. Back when I started, this is 2014, they were very against that because most teachers were like, I got kids running out to the bathroom and they want to go here and the door's open. You got to go open the door and okay, no. Tough, live with it because you're already one step ahead when you have to go into a lockdown if the door's already locked, okay? During a lockdown, classroom door is locked, you turn the lights off, you close the blinds, you sit on the floor quietly away from the windows, silence your phones, you don't listen to any announcements, you do not open that door once it's locked, once the announcement is made, and you wait, and you're waiting for the good guys to come. And I wrote a book after Uvalde, and we could talk about that a little bit. I was so upset with what happened to Uvalde, obviously being law enforcement and what happened there. And it wasn't entirely law enforcement's fault, even though that's what the media focused on. And yes, I understand. It was focused on them because it should have been focused on them. They should never have waited. And I was trained myself, even if one person, you go. But there were other issues. There was a door lock that was a problem. The security guard was not there. The teacher had the door open, whatever. Anyways, my wife at the time, I knew, I said, you got to get this out. You got to vent. You got to put this down. So I just started writing, and it turned into a book, a short book, which I wanted to be short. I wanted to be practical and concise and easy to read. It's 77 pages, Dr. Dan. You can read it in an hour, hour and a half, easily. I wanted something that didn't sit on a shelf. I didn't want a 200 or 300 page diatribe that sat on a shelf that just, if you ever read one of these things, it's administrative manuals, it's boring. You look at this thing going, oh my God, I'm only on page 50 and I'm already falling asleep. I wanted something that you could open it up, give you practical advice, make it so a teacher, a parent, anybody could reach this, and it just was a common sense thing. And in that, I explained that, look, the one thing about drilling and about training that I had through the Secret Service, which was called implicit or muscle memory. We were the only agency, as far as I know, in the United States, we have to qualify with our weapon every month. Once a month, you had to go down there and qualify with your weapon. So it was just rote. It's the same thing in military or athletes, whatever. You do something over and over and over again, it just becomes rote. And as you know, implicit memory is like, you go, you put a seatbelt on, you button a shirt, you're doing it without thinking. You're just automatically doing it. So I wanted the same thing to happen to teachers in the classroom during the lockdown. Look, all right, we've got this issue. We're going to drill. This is what we know what to do. Everybody quiet. And then at the end, as you know, at the end of the lockdown, you do not make an announcement and say it's over. You wait for someone with a key, whether it's an administrator or a police officer, to unlock that door and step in and say, the drill's now over, or the incident is now over. We're back to normal. Okay, so that's it. However, as you know, no one is going to know what they're going to do in an emergency. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how you're going to react. You have no idea. Now, I've been trained on some of this stuff. Okay, my training kicked in at 9/11 because I was at the White House for 9/11, and you go through this routine. However, I've had plenty of stories of teachers, not only during drills, but even during events that weren't real serious, but they still went into a lockdown, and you just freeze. They froze. It just absolutely didn't know what to do. So that's why I asked, look, you don't have to drill every month. That is because, as you know, for anything like that, it becomes too much. Because after a while, I want to say, I don't complain. I do complain about fire drills. I don't understand why we do them every month. It's like, when's the last time a kid died in a fire? It's 130 years ago. Well, we're still doing fire drills. But the problem with lockdown drills is that they take forever. The amount of time I've spent at a high school, the least amount of time, the fastest I've ever done it is like 45 minutes. And that's perfect, 45 minutes. And any other time, it's at least an hour. So now you got teachers, and as you know, with the pandemic and all that's going on, we're 2 years behind. Teachers are under pressure, principals under pressure, school board, all the way up the ladder, school board, legislatures. Hey, we got to get these kids taught. They're 2 years behind, and you're worried about some safety drill? Get the heck out of here. But we got teaching we got to do.
Yes, correct.
So it's very difficult because, as you know, the kids do have to feel safe in order to learn. So I try to say, look, at least every quarter, do a drill, do a lockdown drill. Now, what's been happening recently is that they've gotten away, and I'm saying they've gotten away from, they've given teachers options. They'll say to teachers, okay, lockdown drills, we've had them for years, ever since Columbine. It's old school. The devil's advocate is they're sitting ducks. They're sitting in a classroom, sitting ducks. Somebody's going to shoot them. Let's do this other thing called run, hide, fight, or /Alice training. And run, hide, fight was something done by corporations years ago, where it is a good thing for corporations, for businesses, for adults. They have a video that the Department of Homeland Security and Houston Police did. It's an old video. It's like 20 years old. It's a good one. It's got the movie theater narrator on there. It's got a bad guy all dressed in black, and he comes in with a shotgun and he's shooting people up. And they have these options. They can run if they can, or they can hide if they have no place to run, or at the final thing is fight if it comes down to that. Okay, it's for adults. I get it. Somehow this transferred over to children in schools. It's like, what the heck are you talking about? Why would you run out of a class? Where are you going to go? You're running out of a classroom? Well, a former law enforcement person, I don't know the guy's name, he created this ALICE training, and ALICE is an acronym. We've got so many acronyms out there. ALICE was alert, lockdown, inform. What was C? C was counter, and an E was evacuate. All right, alert and lockdown, I get it. Got it. Sounds good to me. You're alerted, you're locked down. This informed thing was you're supposed to have a person designated in your school to look at the cameras in your school and go over the loudspeaker system, excuse me, and tell people where the shooter is and where they're going. Dr. Dan, we don't have technology in existence that does that. I don't have, there's no cameras now in a school unless you spent millions of dollars on a camera system to zoom in to find out where this person's going. Okay, so then you get to the C, which is counter. And they wanted to stay away from the fight. Well, we're not fighting. No. We're not having children fight. We're going to have the children counter the individual. Well, how are you countering a gunman? Well, we're going to go in for an hour or an hour and a half, and we're going to teach not only the teacher, but we're going to train the children to throw things at the shooter to distract them. Okay. So let me tell you, Dr. Dan, let's see if this makes sense to you.
Yeah.
You're going to teach kids an hour and a half during the most chaotic, emotional crisis in their lives and throw with precision during this at this person all at the same time and distract them with what? A book? A pen? What are you going to throw at? What are you throwing at them? And this is something that schools have accepted. Oh, yes, we like this ALICE training. You know why they like it? Because they say the lockdown drill that we're doing is passive. We're just sitting there. We're sitting ducks. The ALICE training is reactive. We're doing something. We're either running out of the school or we're throwing stuff at the shooter. Okay. I've asked teachers, I have asked their parents of kids, look, find out what's going on in your schools. What are they doing? Are they locking down? Are they running? And I asked the parent, I go to physical therapy for my knee, and I asked the parent there, and she had a middle schooler. And she asked her son, she said, what do you do, during a emergency? So well, we lock down in the classroom. We sit on the floor and, we wait. And she goes, would you ever want to run out of the classroom, and run away? And he goes, Mom, why would I run out in the hall if there's a gunman out there? He says, I'm not going to go out there and run down a hallway. I don't know where this gunman is. I don't want to get shot. Yes. So this idea and how it's gotten so far, Dr. Dan, I don't know. I don't agree with it. But schools have accepted it. They've paid money for this, to have this training where you give a teacher an option of either staying in the classroom or taking 25 children in a hallway to run out or to throw with precision at a shooter if they do breach and get into the classroom. There's only been, as far as I know, and if there's a A mentor of mine with Safe Havens International, they've done the research. There's been one documented case where a shooter on a Native American reservation shot through a lock to get into a classroom. Otherwise, it takes too much time. My book is called The First 5 Minutes because the FBI has done the data that most of these school shootings last between 3 to 5 minutes. And you saw, if you've seen that video of the Nashville shooter, when they come in, they're checking doors to see if they're locked and they're moving on. Locked, move on. Locked, oh, open, I'm going in. So it takes too long to sit there and shoot out a lock because number one, they don't know if anybody's behind there because they're looking for easy victims. So you're wasting your time. You're going to try to shoot this lock out. You may open up and be nobody there. So it doesn't make any sense that you would come out of a perfectly safe classroom.
But then here's the one thing that I'm going to ask you as well, is that all this that you're mentioning right now is if the shooter knows exactly what time of the day all the students are inside the classroom versus if they're outside for lunch. So if they're outside for lunch, he could easily go and there's not going to be any clash lockdown because they're all outside. So then it's going to be easy target for them or for the shooter that is. So that program is not even applicable if you look at a certain time of the day where the shooter can actually show up. So yes. How is that going to be implementable if there's not going to be any lockdown because everyone is outside the room to have lunch or be on the break?
Yes. And that actually, chaos does work in your favor, though, not the shooter's favor, because I have done a lockdown drill. I call it a lockdown drill during lunchtime where half the students were outside and the other half were in the classroom. And I said, let's just see what happens. I want to see what happens. So they had staffers at certain points that had a section of that school of the lunchtime. And when the announcement went off, they'd say, you come towards me and you go towards, and you would separate. And it was good because it was chaotic because they just ran everywhere like ants. So a shooter would be like, okay, I got all these multiple targets, but they're running around like crazy. They need passive people just sitting in a corner, which makes them easy to shoot at. Running around actually is a good thing for something like that because you probably heard it was some years ago where they thought shooters would pull a fire alarm. When they pull a fire alarm, then, as they come out of the school, I'll pick them off. That's not going to work either because you're just, again, that once that first shot comes out, everybody's scattering. You don't have the easy victims again. So this idea that, this lockdown, they're sitting ducks. No, the classroom is locked. You're waiting and the police are on their way. I mean, I point out Nashville a lot because Nashville was a perfect example. Those police were there within 5 minutes. I think it was less than 5 minutes. And they went through the procedures exactly how they were supposed to go, room to room, going directly toward the sound of the shots. And they took out the shooter. I mean, that was just a perfect example of what you're supposed to do. Now, I understand the media focuses on Parkland and the security guard who didn't go in, and Uvalde, where the police did not go in. But that's an anomaly. It really is. 99.9% of the police, they're going. So I asked, not only during my book, but I've got a little credit card size, you put on your lanyard that you can hold on to. And it gives you, if you forget something, mine went blank. Oh, I forgot to pull the blinds down or something like that. So it's just a little quick reference card that I've got there. And two things I do like to mention on any of the podcasts, and I understand we're under a time constraint, but I want to get it out. Two things to remember. One, keep yourself safe. Because I've had principals that say, I need to go save my kids. I'm going to go make sure the doors are locked. It happened in Sandy Hook. It happened in Nashville, where principals just came out and whether they're like going to talk the shooter down or something. I don't know what they're thinking. No, You keep yourself safe first, then you can save other people. Okay. Same thing as if the oxygen mask comes down in an airplane, you put your mask on first, then you can help someone else. Second thing, armed school resource officers. They are a valuable asset. They are an asset. They're advocates for students and teachers and parents. They are well-trained. They know what they're doing. They are not police officers. They are not there to arrest you because this thing with the defund the police and the BLM thing, no. They are there to help you. They're armed. They're an advocate. They have intense training. And these people are the best. I mean, that's their purpose for being there, for doing that. So those are the two things I'd like to mention that I emphasize Keep yourself safe and have school resource officers. Parents, talk to your kids. Talk to your kids. What's going on? I understand teenagers. I got a teenager, 17 years old. What's going on? Then nothing. It's all yes or no answers. Going on. They're in their room doing whatever. Talk to your kids. Just ask them, normal. What do you guys do when you have an emergency? You know, how are they doing their drills? Find out. And if you hear something like, well, we all run out of the classroom and run into the woods, like, okay, that's when a red flag should go up going, you're doing what? Why are you running out of the classroom? Go in front of the school board. I understand you only got 3 minutes, but 3 minutes actually is a long time. You can get a page and a half in 3 minutes up there in front of a school board. Tell them your concerns. Get the data. Get the data. There's plenty of it out there. Finding out what's going on with these safety measures, and stick to the lockdown protocol. Stay away from this run, hide, fight. Stay away from this Alice training, which is just crazy. Or you're going to throw things at a shooter. There's no clinical psychologist. There's no mental health expert that agrees with this Alice training of kids throwing things at a shooter. It just doesn't make any sense.
Also, what we see in what happened in December, I'm not sure if you talk about this in your book, in December 6, 1989, in Montreal, the big École Polytechnique massacre, where the shooter came in and he basically just shot everyone in the main lobby of the school. Then he went to a few classes, he shot them down there. Then he went to the library, he shot them there. So they could go basically anywhere. You don't need to have the top of the line camera to know the whereabouts of the shooter. So I think that if someone is there to do some malicious harm with the intent to be able to kill people, I'm not sure exactly how much of the lockdown inside the classes, it will delay the shooter, because you said that they go from one room, they open, if it's locked, they move on. But if they have a pretty powerful gun, they could shoot the lock. And if they really want in, they'll be able to access it.
They could, but usually, Dr. Dan, that's a targeted attack, meaning they're targeting someone specifically. No, as these shooters, as you know, usually go in, they're just looking for numbers. Okay. And they're usually former students or current students.
Yes.
And they plan this months in advance. They know the school. They know which door is going to be open. They know what time people leave. They know all this stuff about the emergency procedures. So they know what's going on. And they're not, I say they're crazy, but they're not absolutely insane, because they have a clock ticking in their head also. But they're just looking for numbers. So they know that if they take too long trying to shoot a lock out of the door, the police are coming. They're on their way. And obviously, the other thing is with the school resource officers, they're also responding. So they've got a time frame that they've got to get as many victims as they can.